6 clicks into darkness, stories from the edge of the dark web. It always starts small. A single click, a harmless post, a moment of curiosity, a desperate job offer that pays too much, a chat room where people know more than they should, a live stream with one viewer too many, a harmless auction that becomes a nightmare. 6 stories, 6 people who thought they were in control until they weren't. Each step pulled them deeper. Each click led them further into something they couldn't escape. These aren't just spooky tales to tell in the dark. They're warnings about how thin the line is between safety and vulnerability when you're behind a screen. Because on the dark web, every decision matters, and every mistake comes with a cost. So ask yourself, would you have clicked? Would you have stayed? And most importantly, would you have made it out? Story number 1. The red market job. I was broke, desperate, and staring at an anonymous job posting on a dark web forum. The payout? Enough to change my life. The task? Unclear, but suspiciously simple. Desperation makes people do stupid things, and I was no exception. Rent was overdue by 2 months, my utilities were about to get shut off, and my fridge held little more than expired milk and a bruised apple. My last paycheck barely covered my internet bill, my only lifeline to the outside world. I'd heard whispers about the dark web before, layers of the internet hidden beneath layers, where money exchanged hands for things that didn't bear thinking about. But I wasn't looking for anything illegal, just profitable. It didn't take long to stumble across the Obsidian Exchange, a dark forum with blinking cursors and user IDs like Night Syndicate 223 and Z0 Many Avoid. It was a marketplace of sorts, guns, drugs, fake passports, you name it. But nestled in the jobs and tasks section was a post that stood out. Him. Easy job, high payout. 1, delivery only, must follow instructions exactly. The payment? $10,000. I hesitated for maybe 5 seconds before clicking. The instructions were sparse. Provide an anonymous Dropbox email. Await package pickup details. Follow every instruction to the letter. At the bottom in red text, do not open the packager. It felt wrong. Everything about it felt wrong. But $10,000 was life-changing money for me. So I signed up, sent my email, and waited. The reply came 48 hours later. A single line of text. Pickup, 3 p.m., Storage Unit 46A, Lone Pine Industrial Park. 1. The next day, I drove my beat-up sedan to the industrial park. Rows of grey, lifeless storage units stood like sentinels under an overcast sky. My heart pounded as I stepped inside Unit 46A. 146A. In the center of the concrete floor sat a large, hard plastic cooler, locked with 2 industrial padlocks. There was a folded note taped to the top. Delivered to 88 Redwood Drive. Leave the package by the garage door. Do not approach the house. Do not open the cooler. The cooler was heavy, and whatever was inside shifted slightly when I lifted it. I tried not to think about it as I loaded it into my trunk. The drive felt endless. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if it was drugs? What if it was body parts? But $10,000 has a way of silencing your conscience. When I pulled up to 88 Redwood Drive, the house looked abandoned. Broken shutters, peeling paint, the kind of place neighbors pretend doesn't exist. I got out, lugged the cooler to the garage door and set it down. But as I turned to leave, I heard it. A faint scratching sound from inside the cooler. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Was there something alive in there? Every instruction told me not to open it, but humans are cursed with curiosity, and I was no different. Back in my car, parked a mile down the road, I stared at the cooler. The scratching had stopped, but my imagination hadn't. What if someone was trapped inside? What if they were dying in there? I justified it to myself. If it's something bad, I'll call the cops. If it's nothing, I'll just lock it back up. I snapped the first padlock open with a hammer from my trunk. The second followed soon after. The lid creaked as I lifted it. Inside was meat. Or something that looked like meat. Wet, pale, and glistening under the dull daylight. But that wasn't the worst part. It was moving. Slightly, subtly, like it was breathing. I slammed the lid shut and fell back against my car, gasping for air. The scratching started again, but this time it wasn't faint. It was frantic. I didn't deliver the cooler. I couldn't. I shoved it out of my car on a deserted stretch of road and drove home as fast as I could. That night, my email pinged, a message from an untraceable account. You had one job. You failed. Now you owe us. Attached was a photo of my apartment building. I shut my laptop, every nerve in my body screaming in terror. My phone buzzed. A text. Check your front door. I crept towards my door, every shadow in my tiny apartment suddenly menacing. Slowly, I opened it. A small, blood-stained envelope sat on my welcome mat. Inside was a single note. Run. That's exactly what I did, I said. I packed a backpack with clothes, my laptop, and whatever cash I had left. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. The entire drive, paranoia gripped me. Every car felt like it was following me. Every pedestrian seemed to glance at me for a second too long. Eventually, I checked into a motel under a fake name. The curtains stayed drawn, and I slept with a knife under my pillow. But sleep didn't come easy. Every sound felt deliberate. Every creak of the floorboards felt like someone was inside. And then the emails started again. You can't run forever. We see you. You shouldn't have opened it. Attached to the last email was a grainy photo of me, sleeping in my motel bed. Monsieur, I'm writing this now from a library computer somewhere far from home. I've changed cities, cars, and identities, but it doesn't matter. They'll always find me. What would you have done after opening the Kool-Aid? Theme: greed, paranoia, irreversible consequences. Some doors should never be opened. Some offers should never be accepted. But most importantly, some jobs on the dark web are worth far more than they promise to pay. Because sometimes the cost is your soul. Story number 2, the forum that watches. I thought it was just another discussion board. Threads about cryptography, trading, even bizarre conspiracy theories. But then I found the Watchers thread. Is that what you think? Is that why the riot? I've always been the kind of person who lurks on forums late at night. There's something about those anonymous spaces, the endless threads, the obscure usernames, that feels like peering into hidden corners of the world. It started innocently enough. I'd been browsing a well-known dark web forum called The Silent Market. Most of the threads were typical: black market trading, cryptocurrency guides, paranoid debates about government surveillance. But one thread caught my eye: the Watchers thread. Do you know who's watching you right now? The title was vague, almost clickbaity, but curiosity, that insatiable itch, got the better of me. I clicked. Inside were dozens of posts, stretching back years. Most were nonsense, paranoid ramblings, cryptic phrases, and strings of numbers. But every now and then, someone would post something different. They know when you sleep, they know when you leave your house. Be careful what you type here. Don't respond to direct messages from usernames you don't recognize. They're not who they seem. If you see someone outside, don't make eye contact. Don't let them know you saw them. It was unsettling, but also fascinating. I kept scrolling until I reached the bottom, where a new comment box awaited. Without thinking much, I typed, "This is all ridiculous. Who are the Watchers anyway?" I hit enter. Not even 3 seconds passed before a reply appeared. "We see you. Look out your window." My stomach dropped. I live on the second floor of a small apartment complex, and my desk sits right by a narrow window overlooking the parking lot. My blinds were halfway open, just enough for a faint glow from the street lamp to spill in. Slowly, I turned my head. There, standing just beyond the glow of the lamp, was a figure, perfectly still, perfectly silent. I couldn't make out any features, just a silhouette, but I knew they were looking at me. My heart hammered in my chest as I yanked the blinds shut and stumbled back from the window. My computer screen pinged again, another message. Nice blinds. Won't stop us, though. I slammed my laptop shut, pacing my tiny apartment with my pulse roaring in my ears. It was a prank. It had to be. Someone messing with me. But how could they know? How could they know where I was, what I was doing? I grabbed a kitchen knife and sat on my couch, eyes darting to every shadow, every flicker of movement outside. Hours passed. Eventually, exhaustion set in, and I dozed off. When I woke up, it was still dark. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. An unknown number. The text simply said, "Check your inbox." I hesitated, then opened my laptop. The forum was still up, the thread still open. A new reply awaited me. "Nice nap. You drool in your sleep." Attached was a grainy photo of me on the couch, the knife still clenched in my hand. I lost it. I ripped the power cord out of my laptop, grabbed my phone and called the police. When they arrived an hour later, they did a quick sweep of the property. No one in the parking lot, no signs of forced entry. They took a brief statement and left, clearly annoyed that I'd wasted their time. I was alone again. I thought about leaving, packing up and going somewhere else. But where? Who could I tell? Who would believe me? In the middle of my spiral, my phone buzzed again. "You shouldn't have called them. Now we have to escalate." It travels fast. A second text followed, a photo of my front door, taken from the other side. I didn't sleep for days. I barely ate. I kept all the lights on, jumped at every sound, and stared at my door like it was a ticking time bomb. At some point, I worked up the courage to log back into the forum. My account was still active. I found the Watcher's thread again. My comments were still there, along with everyone else's, but at the very top of the page was a new pinned post. It was titled, "A New Addition to Our Ranks." I clicked. The thread was empty except for one thing, a single image. It was me. Underneath, a caption read, "Welcome to the Watchers." I shut my laptop, threw it across the room and sank to the floor. They were inside. They had always been inside. No locks, no blinds, no alarms could stop them. They weren't just watching me. They had control. Total, suffocating control. Silence. I left my apartment that night with nothing but my phone and wallet. I didn't lock the door behind me. What was the point? I moved to another city, changed my phone number, switched jobs. But no matter where I go, I can still feel them. Watching. Every anonymous profile I see online makes me wonder if it's them. Every shadow I glimpse out of the corner of my eye makes me freeze in place. And every night, when the lights are off and the world is quiet, I hear a faint ping from my laptop, a notification I'll never check. So what would you have done after seeing your own photo posted? Story number 3. The wrong click. It started with one click. A stupid, impulsive click on a link that said, "See what they don't want you to see." It was late, somewhere around 2 a.m., the kind of late where your brain stops making good decisions and curiosity starts whispering stupid ideas in your ear. I'd been diving into dark web forums for hours, hopping between shady links, reading threads about conspiracy theories, secret government experiments, and bizarre rituals. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just browsing. That's when I saw it. A simple hyperlink in blood-red text. See what they don't want you to see. No description, no context, just those words glowing faintly on the black background of the forum page. I hovered over it, my cursor trembling slightly. I knew better. Every instinct in my body told me to close the tab and walk away. But I click. The screen went black for a moment, and then a video feed flickered to life. A dimly lit room appeared on my screen. Concrete walls, a single flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and in the center, a person tied to a chair. Their head hung low, hair matted with sweat and blood. Their face was covered by a stained cloth gag. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. This wasn't staged. This wasn't some horror movie. It was real. And then, white text appeared on the screen. Say something, or they die. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. A countdown appeared below the message. 010, 009, 0-08. Panicked, I leaned towards my keyboard and typed the first thing that came to mind. I'm sorry. The person in the chair flinched. Their shoulders jerked and their head snapped up slightly, like they had heard me. I clamped a hand over my mouth. That's when I noticed the small green light on my webcam was on. I scrambled for the webcam settings, clicking through menus and tabs, trying to disable it, but no matter what I did, the light stayed on. The screen flickered, and the video feed froze. New text appeared. We see you now. Below that, another line. Nice posters on your wall. You should smile more. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. They could see me. They could see my room. The feed abruptly cut to black, and my computer started glitching. Folders opened and closed on their own, random files popping up on my screen. Documents I didn't recognize, images of places I'd never been. Then, a text file opened. It contained my full name, my address, my phone number, and photos. Photos of me taken from my own webcam. My hands were shaking as I pulled the power cord out of the computer. The screen went dark, but the damage was already done. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tapping against my window. When the sun came up, I stuffed my laptop into a trash bag, drove halfway across town and tossed it into a dumpster behind an old gas station. I told myself it was over, that I'd cut the connection, that they couldn't reach me anymore. But then, 3 days later, a small padded envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled across the front in black ink. Inside was a USB drive. Attached to it was a note written in block letters. Plug me in. I held the drive between my fingers, my stomach twisting into knots. Every instinct screamed at me to destroy it, to snap it in half, toss it into a fire, or flush it down the toilet. But then the questions started creeping in. What if it's a message? What if it's instructions on how to stop this? What if ignoring it makes things worse? I sat there for hours, staring at that tiny black device. In the end, I couldn't do it. I wrapped it in tape, shoved it into a shoebox, and hid it in the back of my closet. But hiding it didn't stop the paranoia. I started noticing things. My phone acting weird, battery draining too fast, random pop-ups, apps opening on their own. My smart TV turned on by itself one night. Static crackled on the screen, and for a split second I swear I saw my reflection staring back at me. Emails started flooding my inbox. Random strings of numbers, blurry images, and cryptic messages like hubs and flows, flashes, lights. We're still watching. Open the drive. You can't ignore us forever. I stopped sleeping. Stopped going out, stopped answering calls. I even covered every camera lens in my apartment with duct tape, but it didn't make me feel safer. Nothing did. I'm writing this now from a borrowed laptop at a public library. I haven't been home in days. The USB drive is still in my closet, still untouched, but I know they're not finished with me. Every time I pass a security camera, I wonder if they're watching me through it. Every time my phone buzzes, I flinch. I'm still trying to get by, and I still think, I could plug in the USB, maybe it would give me answers, maybe it would make this stop. But I don't think I want to know what's on it. Maybe some doors aren't meant to be opened. Maybe some clicks should never be made. Would you have plugged in the USB or destroyed it immediately? Sometimes it only takes one click, one impulsive, thoughtless moment, and once that door is open, there's no going back. Christine, story number 4, the chat room of secrets. It was supposed to be a simple chat room. Anonymous usernames, harmless banter, but then someone mentioned the ritual. It started with boredom, the kind of restless boredom that creeps in after midnight when sleep won't come and your mind starts wandering into places it shouldn't. I was browsing a dark web forum I'd stumbled across weeks earlier, mostly just people sharing secrets they'd never say out loud in the real world, petty crimes, confessions of guilt, fears about the government watching them through their webcams. That night I found a chat room link buried in a thread titled, "Secrets Only the Dark Can Keep." The description read, "Come share what you can't say anywhere else. No names, no faces, just secrets." I clicked. The chat ran. The interface was bare. Black background, neon green text, usernames like Void Speaker and Glassdoll99. Messages scrolled past rapidly. I lied in court. An innocent man went to prison because of me. I followed someone home last night. They didn't see me. I know how to make someone disappear without leaving a trace. I wasn't sure if these people were serious or just playing some twisted game, but it felt raw. Like every message was a splinter of someone's real soul. I typed my own message. "Why are we here? Why share these secrets?" A user named Bloodscript replied almost immediately. "Because secrets lose power when they're spoken out loud, unless you want them to have more power." The chat went quiet for a moment, then someone else typed, "Has anyone done the ritual?" The messages came faster now. "Don't talk about that here. Shut up before they see. It's not a joke." But Bloodscript didn't stop. They started typing out details, line by line. Step 1, write your full name. Step 2, write your address. Step 3, write someone you love. Step 4, offer something of yourself. The chat was spiraling. People were logging off. Others were begging Bloodscript to stop. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, and then, for reasons I still can't explain, I typed. John Doe. It wasn't my real name, of course, just a joke, just something to break the tension. But before I could hit enter, my finger slipped, and I accidentally typed out the first 3 letters of my real name. Yeah, I froze, but it was already sent. Almost instantly, Bloodscript replied. "Thank you, John. Is your address still—" I felt my stomach drop. That was my real address. I slammed my laptop shut, heart racing, palms slick with sweat. My apartment felt suddenly too quiet, too still. How did they know? Was it a lucky guess, a prank? A soft knock echoed from my front door. My breath caught in my throat. I stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe, hoping, praying, that whoever was out there would just leave. Then came another knock. Louder this time, more deliberate. I crept towards the peephole, every step feeling heavier than the last. The hallway outside was empty. But as I pressed my eye against the peephole, a voice, clear and low, spoke from the other side of the door. "Step 4. You forgot step 4. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the corner of my rug. My mind was screaming, "This isn't real, this can't be real." But the voice, it was right there. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A text from an unknown number. "Offer something of yourself, John, or we'll take something instead." Attached was a photo of my apartment door, taken from the inside. I grabbed the nearest knife from my kitchen drawer and held it with trembling hands, pointing it at the door, like it could somehow stop whatever was on the other side. Another knock. Slow, rhythmic. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, hours, time lost all meaning. The knocking stopped eventually, but the silence that followed was even worse. At some point, I backed into the corner of my living room, knife still clutched in my hand. I stared at the door, waiting for it to burst open, for someone or something to come through. But nothing happened. Morning came, and sunlight crept through the cracks in my curtains. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened. But I know better. I haven't touched my laptop since. It's still sitting on my desk, closed, the screen covered in greasy fingerprints from the night before. Every night when it gets quiet, I swear I can hear faint tapping, like fingers drumming against my window or knuckles softly grazing my door. Knock, knock, knock. Would you have joked around in that chat room or stayed silent? Some games don't have rules. Some rituals aren't meant to be started, and some chat rooms should never be joined. Story number 5. The last stream. There's something deeply unsettling about stumbling onto a live stream with 0 viewers, except one, you. It was one of those nights where sleep felt impossible. I was staring at my computer screen, mindlessly scrolling through dark web forums, clicking on threads that promised secrets, conspiracies, and forbidden knowledge. That's when I saw it. A single post buried deep in a discussion board titled, "Live Feeds They Don't Want You to See." The link simply read, "Last viewer wins." No description, no comments, just those 3 words. I hesitated, my cursor hovering over the link. Curiosity is a sickness, and I was already infected. So I clicked. The screen went black for a moment, then flickered to life. The stream showed a dimly lit basement. The camera was static, mounted high in a corner, capturing everything from a distance. In the center of the room, illuminated by a single swaying light bulb, was a person tied to a chair. Their head hung low, and their breathing was shallow, labored. A chat box below the stream was empty except for one message, written in bright red text. "Stay until the end or the game resets." I leaned closer to the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. "Is this real?" I muttered under my breath. The person in the chair stirred slightly, letting out a muffled sound. Their face was obscured by a burlap sack, dark stains spreading across the fabric. The clock in the corner of the stream began counting down. 0:00. 30 minutes. I wanted to close the tab right then and there, but I couldn't. I was locked in, transfixed by the glow of my monitor. Around the 25-minute mark, a figure walked into frame. They were wearing a featureless white mask and a hooded sweatshirt. In one hand they carried an old-fashioned kitchen timer, in the other, a long, serrated knife. The person in the chair whimpered, their muffled cries echoing faintly through my speakers. The masked figure set the timer on a small table beside the chair, turning the dial with deliberate slowness. Tick, tick, tick. The chat box suddenly flickered, and a new message appeared. "Are you still watching?" I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Against my better judgment, I typed, "Yes." The figure tilted their head slightly, as if acknowledging my response. Then they walked out of frame, leaving only the bound person, the ticking timer, and the silence. The timer continued ticking down, the sound drilling into my skull. 00. I was shaking. My palms were slick with sweat, my breathing shallow. The person in the chair had gone still, their head slumped forward. The chat flickered again. "Don't leave, it's almost over." But I couldn't take it anymore. Whatever was about to happen, I didn't want to see it. I hovered over the X in the corner of my browser window. Then the chat updated one last time. "If you leave now, the game resets. Someone else will take your place." My stomach churned. Were they saying, me? But fear overrode everything else. My hand trembled as I clicked the X. The stream disappeared. The screen went blank. But the ticking of the timer still echoed in my head. I shut my laptop, my heart hammering in my chest. The silence of my room felt heavy, suffocating. Hours passed. Maybe I dozed off, maybe I didn't. Time felt meaningless. Around dawn, My phone buzzed. A text message. No number, no contact name. It simply said, "You shouldn't have left. Now you're next." Attached was a photo. It was me, sitting at my desk, staring at my screen. The photo had been taken from behind me. I spun around in my chair, eyes scanning every shadow in my room. But I was alone, or at least, I thought I was. I packed a bag and left my apartment that morning. No plan, no destination, just away. But paranoia travels with you. Every shadow felt like it was stretching towards me. Every sound, every ticking clock felt deliberate. I threw away my phone, destroyed my laptop, cut myself off from anything that could be tracked. But deep down, I know it's not enough. That timer, those final seconds, I should have stayed. I should have seen it through. Because now, every time I close my eyes, I see that masked figure standing in the corner of my room, watching, waiting. And somewhere, in a basement I'll never find, a timer is still ticking down. Tick, tick, tick. Would you have stayed till the timer hit 0? Some streams should never be watched. Some games should never be played, and some choices have consequences you can't run from. You know. Story number 6. The buyer. I was selling an old laptop online, but instead of eBay or Craigslist, I stupidly listed it on a dark web auction site. It was supposed to be an easy sale. My old laptop had been gathering dust on my desk for months, a sluggish, overheating mess that I'd replaced long ago. I figured I could make a little cash off it. I started on the usual sites, eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. But after days of no responses and lowball offers, frustration led me somewhere darker. I'd heard about dark web marketplaces before, places where people traded everything from fake passports to illegal substances, but they also had tech sections, and people there seemed to pay premium prices for even outdated devices. I listed my laptop with a vague description. Old laptop, functional, good condition, best offer takes it. Within an hour I had a message. User Nalby 34. $3,000, but I need all personal files intact, no wiping the drive. $3,000 for a 5-year-old laptop that barely turned on. I hesitated. The files on that laptop were nothing special, some college essays, random photos, maybe an old resume, nothing incriminating, nothing important. I agreed. The buyer was specific about shipping, an unmarked box, a handwritten label, no return address. I followed the instructions carefully, packed up the laptop and sent it out the next day. The payment hit my account before the tracking number even showed delivery confirmation. It felt too easy. But $3,000 was in my bank account, and I wasn't about to question it. Days passed. I almost forgot about the whole thing, until the emails started. The subject line read, "Look familiar?" I opened it expecting spam or some phishing attempt. Instead, it was a photo of me, sitting at my desk, taken from my old laptop's webcam. My heart stopped. The timestamp on the photo was from months ago. I hadn't used that laptop in ages, and I'd always assumed the webcam light would turn on if someone accessed it. But there I was, staring at the screen, completely unaware. Another email followed minutes later. Subject: Memories are forever. This time it was an old document, a journal entry I'd written years ago, stuff no one else should have, stuff that was buried deep in random folders. They had everything. Over the next few days, the emails kept coming. Photos of me at different times, different angles, files from private folders, even old messages I'd long forgotten about. One email had a short video attached. It was me, yawning, stretching, staring blankly at the screen. I hadn't even known the webcam was recording. I felt sick, violated. I unplugged my new laptop, smashed the webcam lens with a screwdriver and taped over my phone camera. But the emails didn't stop. The final one came late one night. Subject: Nice to meet you. See you soon. Attached was a single image. It was a photo of my bedroom window, taken from outside. I froze, phone clutched in my trembling hand. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but a faint shadow stretched across the thin fabric. Someone was standing out there. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then came the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Knuckles gently rapping against the glass. Slow, rhythmic. I backed away, step by step, until my legs hit the edge of my bed. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but fear kept me locked in place. After what felt like hours, the tapping stopped. The shadow disappeared. But I didn't dare move until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. The next morning I packed a bag and left. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't use my phone or laptop. I didn't even take my car. I just walked to the nearest bus station and boarded the first bus out of town. But paranoia doesn't care about distance. Every person I pass on the street feels like they're watching me. Every faint sound at night, every creak, every shuffle feels like someone creeping closer. I keep thinking about that laptop, about all the little digital fingerprints I'd left behind on it over the years. Passwords, emails, private conversations, tiny pieces of me scattered like breadcrumbs. And someone, somewhere, had followed every single one of them. I don't know if they're still watching, but every now and then, when it's late at night and everything is quiet, I hear it. Tap, tap. Would you have sold the laptop with the files intact or wiped it clean first? The internet never forgets. Every file, every photo, every moment, once shared or stored, can become a key. And some buyers don't stop at the sale. CRMs scrape details. Curiosity is a powerful thing. It drives innovation, discovery, and progress, but it's also dangerous, especially when paired with the hidden corners of the internet. The stories you've just heard, the red market job, the forum that watches, the wrong click, the chat room of secrets, the last stream, and the buyer, are chilling reminders of how quickly a single choice can spiral into something horrifying. Each narrator had a moment, a pause, where they could have stepped away, closed the tab, or simply said no. But they didn't. They stayed. And that's the thing about the dark web. It doesn't rely on force to pull you in. It uses curiosity, greed, and boredom. Just a click, just a harmless question, just a little peek behind the curtain, and suddenly, you're in deeper than you ever intended to be. But these stories aren't just ghost tales to scare you away from the screen. They're warnings. Because while some corners of the dark web might seem like digital urban legends, the risks are very, very real. Every click leaves a fingerprint. Every download creates a door. Every piece of personal information you share, whether intentionally or accidentally, becomes a thread someone can pull to unravel your life. That strange job posting offering too much money for too little effort, it's not just a lucky break, it's bait. That anonymous chat room where secrets flow freely, you're not invisible there, someone always knows. And that link, the one you know you shouldn't click but do anyway, could lead to consequences that don't stop when you close your laptop. The internet, especially its shadowy underbelly, has a long memory. So what can you do? How can you protect yourself when so much of our lives are spent online? Think before you click. Suspicious links, anonymous threads, and strange job offers should never be taken lightly. If it feels wrong, it is wrong. Cover your tracks. Use strong passwords, enable two-factor authentication, and, if you must browse anonymously, use secure tools designed for privacy. Your webcam and mic aren't just yours. Physically cover your webcam when not in use and disable your microphone unless absolutely necessary. Never share personal information. Names, addresses, phone numbers. Keep them off anonymous platforms. You never know who's watching. Walk away. Sometimes, the best choice is to simply close the tab and walk away. No story, no secret, no quick payday is worth your safety. Every story shared today started with a single moment. A moment where fear, greed, or plain curiosity tipped the scales. And in that tiny moment, everything changed. That moment, these aren't just dark web horror stories, They're cautionary tales about how thin the line between safety and vulnerability really is online. The dark web isn't inherently evil, it's a tool, one that can be used for both good and bad, but it's also unforgiving. It doesn't care about your intentions or your excuses. One wrong step, one careless click, and you might find yourself in a situation you can't escape. So the next time you stumble onto a link that feels off, a forum thread that seems too quiet, or an offer that feels too good to be true, remember these stories. Remember the cost of crossing that line. Because sometimes, the scariest monsters aren't lurking in the shadows of a dark basement. They're waiting patiently behind a blinking cursor, watching, waiting for you to click. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories from the shadows of the internet. And if you have a dark web story of your own, share it with us at darkwebrealities@gmail.com.